Welcome to the Global News Podcast from the BBC. I'm Valerie Sanderson and I'm joined by Carine Torbey from BBC Arabic, who's in Beirut in Lebanon. And these are the final day of talks, aren't they, Carine, between Lebanon and Israel? What's the aim of these discussions?
Well, today was the third and final day of these talks. It's the seventh round of talks between Lebanon and Israel. The aim is to solve the conflict between the two countries. Lebanon hopes that by the end of these talks, it will be seeing Israeli troops withdrawing from Lebanon. What Lebanon wants is the end of the hostilities, Israel abiding by the ceasefire, because there have been lots of violations of the ceasefire from Israel from Lebanon's point of view, and Israel withdrawing from the areas it occupies in Lebanon. Now, Israel, in return, says that it wants to guarantee the security of the north of Israel and making sure that there is nothing in South Lebanon that could present any threat to the security of Israel. Therefore, what it is asking for is the dismantlement of any Hezbollah infrastructure and for the Lebanese army to make sure that there isn't any Hezbollah's presence. But basically, there is absolutely no breakthrough on the ground. On the contrary, what we saw in the past 2 days is basically fears of a renewed escalation. Israel has been intensifying its strikes on Lebanon, and as we are speaking now, there are reports of more strikes happening, Israeli strikes on southern Lebanon.
And there'd been this proposal for withdrawal from pilot zones. What would that entail?
Well, the idea of pilot zones was suggested as kind of a gradual process towards some sort of withdrawal from Lebanon. Lebanon was hoping that Israel would start a gradual withdrawal from areas it occupies in southern Lebanon. The Lebanese army will take over, control these areas, and once there is kind of consensus that these areas have become safe in terms of there isn't any presence of any military groups on those areas other than the Lebanese army, then we would move to another town. And town after town, Lebanon will see all the Israeli troops leaving. But what has been happening here in the first kind of implementation of these pilot zones have been very disappointing for the Lebanese. First, 2 of the 3 pilot zones that were agreed upon were not occupied to start with. These were towns where the Lebanese army is there, where Lebanese residents have gone back to. So there wasn't any Israeli withdrawal from them. The third one is a small town where Israeli troops were actually on the outskirts of it. And we've seen 2 weeks ago the Lebanese army entering this town for the first time. But this isn't really a major breakthrough. And if this is to be implemented on that scale, then it would take years and years to see the Israeli troops leaving the territory they occupy in Lebanon. So there is a sort of disappointment in Lebanon so far about the implementation of this pilot zone process and whether it will actually lead to any kind of Israeli withdrawal from the areas it occupies in Lebanon.
And some of these places, I'm thinking of Ali Taha Hill. What is the specific problem with those? Because as I understand it, Israel says, well, that's where Hezbollah are.
Yes, basically this is one of the main areas that Israel claims has Hezbollah's infrastructure, tunnels, network of corridors underground, and that is one of the areas from where Hezbollah fighters were launching attacks on northern Israel from. And at the moment, it is an area that is surrounded by Israeli troops under Israeli control, armed control, and it is one of the sticking points because Israel might conduct some big operation there, and it has been conducting lots of demolitions of structures in several towns across South Lebanon, especially in the areas it controls and it occupies in South Lebanon. And this has become a main concern for the Lebanese authorities and also for the people here, who think that lots of towns in South Lebanon have been completely wiped out by the Israeli forces. And even the Israeli finance minister has said that Israel has completely and totally destroyed more than 20 villages in South Lebanon. All of this create a feeling that there is a change of everything in these areas, and that there are conditions that might make it impossible for people to return to these areas when these towns see any kind of Israeli withdrawal from them.
What about this idea of verification by a third party to oversee Israel's withdrawal and indeed oversee Lebanon as well?
The idea of the third party verification is linked directly to the idea of the pilot zones. Now, basically, it is a third party that's not Lebanon, neither Israel, that should come and verify and assess whether the Lebanese armed forces were able to control any area from where the Israeli forces withdraw, and make sure that this is a good start for a next area to see the implementation of the same process. At the moment, we have no agreement between Lebanon and Israel about who is the third party. And all of this is part of the details that are still being worked out, and that are still there are lots of differences about them between Lebanon and Israel, and are actually creating more and more obstacles into the implementation of this idea of pilot zones, and therefore delaying further any kind of Israeli withdrawal from these towns.
Carine, you say there's lots of differences. They seem very split on how to deal with Hezbollah, who of course are not at these talks, are they?
Hezbollah is absolutely against these talks. It considers that Lebanese authorities are actually doing these talks in the interest of Israel rather than in the interest of Lebanon. And they are not party to the talks, obviously, and they say that they refuse any outcomes of these talks. Now, also, the Lebanese state says that Hezbollah is the one that got Lebanon into this position, and that whatever it is agreeing on and this diplomatic path it has chosen to go into has been the result of actions by Hezbollah that have led to the situation Lebanon is in at the moment. But also, people are now wondering more and more whether there will be any breakthrough from this diplomatic path, because, as I said before, this is the 7th round and no one is seeing any kind of progress towards solving these issues.
And you're in Lebanon. What's the effect of these talks there? Because they're not popular, are they?
Well, there are deep divisions about the talks. Some people consider that, a large proportion of Lebanese consider that these are the only available option for Lebanon. Lebanon can't afford to get anything solved except through diplomatic talks and probably diplomatic pressure later on. And another large number of Lebanese considers that what Lebanon is doing is definitely not for the benefit of Lebanon, doesn't want to engage with Israel in any way or sort, and considers that Lebanon has been giving Israel lots of compromises or sacrifices, and that in return it's not getting anything that is in the interest of the country.
Thanks, Carine. That was Carine Torbey there in Beirut in Lebanon. If you'd like to hear more about this story, just listen to the Global News podcast. Click on the link below. But that's it from this edition of the Global News podcast here on YouTube. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Join us again next time.